Yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jose, and welcome back to my channel where I share my reactions to all news regarding sports. The ultimate goal of mine is to analyze sports while also sharing my thoughts and opinions with others who share a similar passion for sports. For those that are real familiar with the videos and the content that I produce on this channel, you would know that I follow mainly the NFL and the NBA. I've been a big fan of football and basketball my entire life, but there's always been a third sport that I've always been a fan of, and I feel that not too many people are well aware of it. I can go back in my earliest memories, like maybe 3 years old, 4 years old, and I can always remember these distinct memories of me sitting in front of a television set, whether it was with my parents or my grandfather or just someone, but I was always watching professional wrestling, and it's been a big part of my life. There was a period, in my late teens where I kind of started to drift away from it, but it was still present. I was still aware of what was going on and, just the basic news that was going on. But it's something that just never really lost my attention. I've been a big fan of it since I was little. I'm still a fan of it today. Not a lot of people knew that, and I think it's just very interesting because in society, at least with the people that I've encountered, they've kind of decided to poo-poo on wrestling and for some reason decide to put people down who are fans of it, because the lame excuse that everyone always gives is oh, well, it's fake. Well, it's yeah, I mean, it's scripted, it's somewhat choreographed, but like anything, things have to be planned, things have to be organized, things have to be thought out in order for it to go well. So whether it's a movie, or whether it's a television series, or a dance, or even sports like basketball and football, they have to go through the motions and prepare to go out and do what they want to do, or do what they have to do. So I don't see the difference. I still see the correlation as to why all these things are connected. And the beauty of professional wrestling is that it's able to incorporate so many different aspects of everyday life. And what do I mean by that? Well, with professional wrestling, not only does it incorporate athleticism, because these are athletes, and some athletes have came from the NFL or basketball backgrounds. Some Olympians have even joined into professional wrestling, most notably with guys like Kurt Angle. But aside from the athletic ability that one must, possess to successfully attain a career in professional wrestling, there's also a level of acting that comes with it, because these guys are given storylines, they're given scripts to follow in order to essentially get through an episode. And there's different elements to it as well. Not only is it athleticism and in combat, if you will, but there's also humor, there's drama, and in some cases there's even romance, depending on what story you're watching. And for me, a lot of this, is the reason why I've kept up with it for so many years. I'm 24 years of age, and I've never really lost sight of why I've connected so much with this product. And whether it has always been, the WWE, or more recently, All Elite Wrestling, this fascinating world of professional wrestling has always managed to bring me back in, even when there was things going on in my life that took precedence. Professional wrestling was always in the background. In fact, I use it as an analogy with my brother. He and I, have always watched wrestling together. And whenever we're going through a life experience, or let's say something's going on in basketball or football, for some reason, professional wrestling has always been the basis and the foundation of the analogies that I would use to explain things. Whether it is heel versus babyface, whether it is a double cross, whether it is a spot in a match. And in many, aspects of my life, I find myself having conversations with people who know nothing about wrestling, and I will use phrases and words that are derived from professional wrestling as a way to explain things. And again, they have no knowledge of what I'm talking about. They don't know anything. I mean, as far as I know, they've never watched wrestling in their life. But I'm talking about, phrases such as gaining heat, or putting someone over, or burying others. And for those that are familiar with professional wrestling, they know what these terms mean. They can understand how to use these terms. But for other people who just aren't as connected or involved with professional wrestling, they look at me and they think, what does that mean? And then I explain to them what the real meaning is, and they kind of add it to their lexicon, they add it to their vocabulary. And I find that so interesting, because it's one thing that I know, and now adding it to someone else for them to use, not knowing where it is originating from. And it's little things like that what professional wrestling has done for me. Not only has it opened up my eyes and opened up a different perspective on life in terms of how I view others or how I interact with others. But it also has just so many pleasant memories. I can remember, being a young kid, and as a family, my parents, my siblings, we would all, watch wrestling together. Some more, than others. Obviously, I became such a bigger fan than anybody in my family. But I can remember just having these conversations about why I like professional wrestling. Who were some of my favorites, such as like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Shawn Michaels. These are just a few of the names that really attracted me to the sport. And yes, I do consider it a sport. I know there are a lot of people out there that do not consider it a sport, but I do think it is, because it possesses that level of athleticism that is required, therefore making it a sport. So I don't understand why people want to discredit it or discredit those that are a part of it. On this channel, I'm hoping to incorporate more content revolving around professional wrestling. I'm thinking about recapping the shows, whether it is produced by the WWE or All Elite Wrestling. Those are two of the primary companies. I also am a fan of what New Japan is doing. Ring of Honor is also coming back up under Tony Khan, who happens to own All Elite Wrestling. Impact every now and then gains my attention and then loses it. But regardless, if it's wrestling, I always try to maintain a pulse on what's going on, all news regarding it. And for the longest time, I've wanted to focus on football and basketball, just because I knew that was mainstream. I knew that people were going to talk about football, basketball, the NBA, the NFL. Not too many people that I know are still connected with pro wrestling, but I look out online and I see that there still is a market of wrestling fans out there that are truly passionate and truly interested in what people have to say. In fact, it's become its own thing. Again, for those that know, there's a whole community of wrestling fans that are still dedicated to this product. And with recent news of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, retiring amidst all these allegations that he's been receiving, and now we're having Triple H come in as the head of creative and also talent relations, many people are anticipating some changes being made to the weekly product, as it regards to WWE, who in recent years have been struggling with, viewership, but that's also accounting for the way people are watching shows now. There's DVRs, there's streaming services. Nobody's really sitting down in front of TV and just watching it. Also, with things like Twitter and social media, they're able to receive news in a quicker way without having to sit through 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. But hopefully, with this new regime, being that, Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon are co-CEOs and Triple H is now going to be heading creative every week, I will speak for myself in that I'm very optimistic. I do believe that positive changes are going to be made. We've seen what Triple H has done with NXT and that brand with the black and gold. Again, I was a big fan of what he was doing with that brand when you saw guys like Johnny Gargano, Ciampa, Adam Cole, Aleister Black, so many more names I can't name off, but there's just an abundant names of talent that have gone through that system, many of which are now in AEW because of the changes in WWE and the way it was ran and the way things were orchestrated, and it didn't set them up to be successful. Now with having Triple H being the head of creative and also looking over talent relations, a lot of news, a lot of reports are saying that many of the wrestlers I should say, are optimistic and they're looking forward to these changes that could be made. Not only are they having a new regime in terms of management, but also reports saying that they're going back to TV 14, which will expand their creative process. Now they'll be able to use a different set of language. They might be able to get away with a little bit more violence. And when you get down to the base of it and the real foundation of what professional wrestling is, these are guys fighting each other. So naturally there's going to be tendencies where it's going to appear violent. So you can't really water down the product. I mean, yes, there were times where they wanted to make it, more showcase of athleticism and wrestling. But to be honest, there's going to be those times where it's like a feud is going to call for maybe a spot where someone's going to have to blade or someone's going to, show blood. They're going to have to swear every now and then in order to really entice the audience to, invest in this feud. Because if two guys are in a heated rivalry, they're not going to talk nice to each other all the time. Naturally, they're going to be a little bit heated. They're going to get a little more spicy with their language, if you know what I'm saying. And not to say that they have to do it every episode or for every segment. drop some kind of curse word. No, but when it's necessary or when it's appropriate. And I mean, obviously, these changes aren't going to be made immediately. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to transition. The WWE has been really good about planning their shows ahead. I mean, there's been times where they throw out the script and obviously make everything up as they go, but they try to have a plan in mind. They try to have a timeline of how they want things ran. So naturally, with SummerSlam coming up this weekend, they're going to go through their progressions. They're going to go through the storylines that they already have set. And I think from then, as we start to pull away from SummerSlam and now go deeper into the fall, I think that's when you're going to start seeing these changes of, creative, of where they're going to go with storylines, how they're going to present certain superstars. And I think the end game is really how the road to WrestleMania is going to be presented. From the months of January to April, that is the money time. That's the biggest time of the year. They want to present their biggest show of the year to as many audiences as they can. So we won't be really able to judge this new direction until then. I'm curious to see the little tweaks they're going to make. They're going to have to see what is going to stick with the audience. They're going to have to see what really works for them. Me personally, I know a few things I really want to see. I want to see less camera cuts, and I feel like that's a very popular opinion of wrestling fans, because just the level of production that they have so much money that they can spend in production, yet they still manage to not present it in a way that all wrestling fans can agree on. There's a lot of instances where it's like a shaky camera and they try to move with the impact, whereas just sticking with one angle and not following the movement as if it's cushioning the blow, if you will. Many things I also want to see. I want to see a more grittier tone, if for wrestling fans that were around for like the Ruthless Aggression era or the Attitude era. They would know that the music choice, it wasn't very hip-hop or pop. Not to say I don't like it. I do enjoy hip-hop music, but not with my wrestling, you know what I mean? And again, depending on the feud, depending on the storyline, you can sense the tone, and if it asks for it, okay, fine, that's totally okay. But again, it has to be appropriate. It has to make sense. I'm looking for long-term storytelling, whereas it's a cohesive unit. I don't want to have to watch week to week and wonder, I wonder what they're doing with this storyline, and then the next week it's basically dropped. Like, no, if you're going to tell me a story, I want to be able to follow along with it, and as a dedicated member of the audience who continues to spend my time watching the product, I want to be rewarded for watching it and then realizing, so what happened a month or two ago makes sense because of the overall story that they're trying to tell. I've always been very critical of the way they insult the audience's intelligence. Like, one thing I've always hated was like the way they portray baby faces sometimes, as dumber than what they actually are. For example, getting counted out or getting, distracted by a heel outside the ring when clearly they're in the middle of a match. It's like, if I'm in a match, I'm going to focus on my opponent. And if you're going to present these baby faces as, quite frankly, as stupid, it's really insulting because, okay, now you're making me cheer for someone that doesn't even know what they're doing. It's like, no, I want smart baby faces. I want characters that I can relate to. And a lot of times people, this is another critique that many people have is with the promos. They were heavily scripted and they were expected to remember line by line what they had to say. And at times certain people would come off as robotic, or they wouldn't speak as natural as you and I would talk. So you would have times where you would think, who in their right mind would speak this way? Or they would criticize, promos. I mean, Roman Reigns suffered from this in his first few years as a single star. Now that he's kind of stepped away from that and he's become the tribal chief, he turned heel, he's given more, liberty and freedom to really express himself in the way that he has, and it's working. It's wonderful. I think Roman Reigns today is way better than what Roman Reigns was 5 years ago. So I'm happy to see that they were able to give him a little bit more space and a little bit more creativity. And I'm hoping that they go back to the days where promos were bullet points. And as long as you hit those points and you told them in a way that was unique to you, it was fine. It was entertaining. That's how guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Kurt Angle, guys of those eras, that's how they got over, is being able to be themselves and just turn up the volume to an 11 while still maintaining aspects of their own characteristics and their own personalities. Again, I'm really looking forward to these changes that are going to be made in the WWE. As always, I'm going to keep up with All Elite Wrestling just because I've fallen in love with so many of the characters and the wrestlers and the storytelling and the match qualities that they've been able to produce. And I'm also growing excited to be able to share this with a group of people, a wide audience that also shares similar ideas and similar opinions regarding pro wrestling. I understand it's not for everybody, and that's fine. If you're fans of pro wrestling, great, then you and I can have a discussion on whatever we want and whatever we feel like. And if you're not, okay, that's cool too. But just give us a follow, like the video, share the video, listen to the video, and see what you think. If you don't agree with my takes, or if you're not interested in pro wrestling, I'm not going to force you to stay. But I do challenge you to sit down and to think about, what is it about pro wrestling I don't like? And then what are some things about pro wrestling that, I find kind of interesting? Because since day one, I've always been a fan. I've known people that have changed their views on professional wrestling after watching it for some time, because obviously on the surface you watch it and you think, wow, this is kind of silly. Well, that's the point. It's not supposed to be serious. This isn't MMA, and we know this. It's a form of entertainment. Some people have referred to WWE as a circus. Yeah, it essentially is a circus. It's all entertainment. That's why they call it sports entertainment. Depending on what wrestling you like, if you like sports entertainment, WWE. If you like professional wrestling, you're probably more inclined to watch All Elite Wrestling or New Japan Pro Wrestling. But regardless, it's still wrestling. It's all derivative. It's like music. If you're a fan of music, there's different genres for you. But at the center of it, it's still music. Again, I'm looking forward to sharing this with you guys. Please give us a like, follow, share, subscribe. You know the deal. I don't have to explain to you guys. But I am looking forward to producing more content. And I can't wait to see what happens at SummerSlam this weekend and see what kind of news they're going to bring out of this weekend. Again, my name is Jose, and I'll catch you in the next video.